The St. Catherine North Police is committed to serve, protect, and reassure the citizens of this division through enforcement of the Commander's intent, public order enforcement, managing activities within our town centers, Spanish Town and Linstead, hotspot controlling, occupying spaces that are prone to violence and regular occurrences of crime, anti-gang activities, pursue, capture, and prosecute gang members, community engagement, building sustainable partnership with our citizens and stakeholders. This is the St. Catherine North Police.
Building confidence and credibility. Through partnership and trust. This is the St. Catherine North Police.
Welcome to the St. Catherine North Community Safety and Security Branch virtual discussion. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome to the St. Catherine North Community Safety and Security Branch Family Empowerment virtual discussion with your host, Kester Fennell. This is the St. Catherine North Community Safety and Security Branch, educating the family.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for joining us this evening for another episode of the St. Catherine North Community Safety and Security Branch's Family Empowerment Discussion. Now, let me first apologize because we have been experiencing some technical difficulties today, and I'm not sure if it's the weather or what, but the show must go on. We are able to find a way to maneuver ourselves and still being able to have this program as we go throughout the evening. Now, as usual, we're going to begin with prayer. So wherever you are, I ask that you just bow your head as we offer a word to open. Father in heaven, we give you thanks right now for your mercies upon each and every one of us. We give you thanks, Father God, for life, for your grace and mercies, for your coverage, Father God. We thank you, Lord, that despite the challenges, we're still able to push forward, and we're looking forward to a meaningful discussion with our residents, Father God, this afternoon. We ask that for those who are on their way home, you get them there safely and help them to join, and so that they can benefit and they can share the information with others that they may also benefit. We give you thanks and make everything work according to will, to your will. Take everything into your hands, Father, as we give you thanks right now. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Corporal Kester Fennell, and this evening we have a very interesting topic, one that when most persons heard it first, they wondered how we thought about that topic for discussion this evening. But I want to say that the month of October is being celebrated as Senior Citizens Month. And as such, we thought it prudent to have a program designed around our senior citizens. And more so, we decided to touch on a topic that is, in our minds, very sensitive and at the same time, very important, because we have seen so many of our elderly persons out there on the streets, walking, begging. Many of them are hardly able to carry themselves, but yet still they are out there on a daily basis trying to find some form of sustenance for themselves. And many would ask the question, what happened to their family members? Where are their children, grandchildren? Why is it that this person at their age would need to be out on the street doing this in order to survive, when they should really be at home trying to be comfortable, living out the rest of their lives? And so this evening, our topic is, are your children really your pension? And we have the statement there, once a man, twice a child. And this evening, we have two important gentlemen that are joining us. And I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, to please just go ahead and unmute, or rather, open your cameras. First of all, we have Mr. Marlon Johnson, and he is the St. Andrew Parish Organizer with the National Council for Senior Citizens. And we also have Mr. Richard Ogilvie, and he is the Area 5 Legal Officer with the Ministry of National Security. Let me first say welcome to you, both of you gentlemen, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here with us this evening to share on this important topic. Ladies and gentlemen, I also want to thank you for joining us week after week. We are live on YouTube for those who are unable to join via Zoom. So we ask that you share the information that is provided, and you can have persons join by searching CSSB North. That is CSSB North 83. All right. So we are far gone as time is concerned. And so, gentlemen, I believe that we want to just delve right into our discussion. Are children really your pension? Now, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Marlon, tell me something. When you hear that question, what comes to your mind?
Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Good evening.
Okay, great.
Yes, good evening.
Okay, when you hear that old age adage, it's as if children have a burden by virtue of being born and being raised by your parents, as if you now are entrusted to pay them back in their latter years, so by virtue of all that they would have done to you. I remember the maintenance act will speak about them having to do those things automatic, as if it's your time now for payback. So all that they would have spent, and to try to in terms of your education, well-being, and going through the rudiments of all levels of school and your care and protection. Now it's your time in your adult years now. This is basically like an exchange.
Okay. So in other words, what you're saying is that when the parents have gone through the rigors and the struggles of maintaining you through your childhood years into adulthood, and having played their part in helping you to become a productive member of society, you're saying then that as children, they have an obligation to pay back to their parents some form of benefit for what they would have contributed to their lives.
Exactly.
All right. So, Mr. Ogilvy, what say you on this matter?
Well, the general idea is that your parents took care of you while you were young, sent you to school, provided you a shelter, um, and everything, all their basic needs. So now that they're up in age and they need assistance, morally, you should I wouldn't even say obligated. You should naturally feel the need to assist the parents. Um, I wouldn't say that it's a pension type of situation, but in my opinion, it's only right that you assist the parents because they did all of this for you. So why is it now that you've made it and you think, all right, I can kick them to the curb and move on with my life?
All right. Thank you so much. But ladies and gentlemen on the platform, what say you? If you would like to comment on that, you can use the raise hand feature, or you can type it in the chat and it will be shared with those online. So for me, that statement is one that we have heard many elderly persons speak over the years. Here in Jamaica, many persons believe that they are investing in their children because at the end of the day, they expect to get some benefit or some return, some good favor at the end of the day in response to their efforts as parents. But then there are those children who are of the opinion that parents were obligated to do everything that they did for them in their younger years because they didn't ask to be here. Parents were the ones who chose to bring them into this life, and therefore, by law, they are required to take care of them at least until the age of 18. And so this is why we want to have this discussion this afternoon. And we want you, ladies and gentlemen, to feel free to engage us in our discussion and to participate. So, Mr. Marlon, could you tell us, please, what is your role at the National Council for Senior Citizens?
Okay, all right, great. So I am currently the parish organizer. So it's a social worker, basically job function, and I cater to seniors' well-being through programs and services that notwithstanding not only for their well-being, but in terms of their rights and responsibility as seniors, as being seen as not as burden, but more as persons or a reservoir of culture transmission. They are basically ambassadors in terms of how we are economic gains and social and cultural reservoir of knowledge. So at the council, I have that responsibility of ensuring that our seniors are what we say with our mantra are active, productive, and healthy aging. So I guess in terms of the state, we are the flagship aging institution to ensure that our seniors are fully much engaged and are recognized. And basically, to segue into your topic, at times we have to also as well intervene in terms of mediation for the family as relates to the same very topic for children taking care of their parents.
And I guess by virtue of that statement, we can see the reality of the issue. And for us with this program, we always advise persons or inform persons that, one of the aims for us here with this program is to help to stem the issue of domestic violence. And what you have referred to just now is domestic violence for us, where there are issues or there are conflicts in the family because children don't want to take care of the elderly.
Yes, and if I may interject, we call it elder abuse, so we'll call it neglect, the form of elder abuse, yeah.
So it's called neglect.
And it's the form of elder abuse.
Elder abuse. Wow, thank you very much for that. I'm pretty sure that there are persons on our platform who was unaware that that is in fact a term and an offense basically that is being committed against the elderly.
Right.
Now, Sir Ogilvy, you go ahead and tell us what is your role in the area 5 of the Jamaica Constabulary Force?
My role is I provide legal advice to the police in preparation of their case files or any legal matters that may come along their way what they want advice on. I also review from time to time contracts and memorandums. I do presentations as well for the JC in terms of any new legislation that might be out that I believe would affect them and that they need to be abreast of what is taking place. So my role is very broad legally. So as I say, I like to say I'm not the only legal officer for Area 5. I'm just one of them. My colleague is also, Ms. Yanikal is also a legal officer for Area 5.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ogilvy and Mr. Johnson. So now we're a little bit more familiar with both gentlemen and their roles in their respective organizations. Now, earlier when you were speaking, Mr. Johnson, you made a mention of the Maintenance Act. You want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about that act and how it relates to elderly? And then I'm going to ask Mr. Ogilvy to just touch for us on what the act says regarding the responsibility of children supporting their elderly parents financially.
Okay, well, I am not so savvy on the act, but I know that there's some provision under Section 10 of the act that speaks of for parents who can sue their children for financial support. I also know that there are cases where children in as it relates to parents who are unable to take care of themselves, that they will have that responsibility of taking care of their child, of their parent and their assets, and ensuring that their well-being is taken care of. I'm gonna show a book. Can you see this book here?
Yes, we're seeing it.
Yeah, man, we have not too long so far tried to create this book that we have here with PAHO, and it speaks of some of the rights of older persons. We have been in terms of educating not just only the seniors but the entire family. So I'll be share one with you as well, because it's basically a pictorial of some of the rights that persons may, and it speaks of those similar aspect of the Maintenance Act.
Okay. So you have been able to basically reduce the act or simplify it for persons, for readers. But
Right.
How can persons get access to that material?
Okay, well, I understand that we will have it. We have it maybe another, I think another week or so. It will be made in electronic format. But we do have copies, and we're currently going to make this in electronic form, so you can get it downloaded on our Ministry of Labor website.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
All right, so Sir Ogilvy, it's over to you. What does the Maintenance Act state regarding the responsibility of children supporting their elderly parents?
As Mr. Johnson correctly said, it's actually Section 10 of the Maintenance Act that governs the child's responsibility to take care of their parents. But what a lot of persons don't know is that it is not just limited to parents, it also includes grandparents. Okay. And the act basically says that a parent or a grandparent can bring their child or grandchild before the court for maintenance for the day-to-day living. A lot of persons aren't aware of that. And I believe that this session is important to edify everyone about this provision of the act. It's not just limited to persons carrying the baby father, baby mother's drama before the court. You know, a parent, as I said, can rightfully sue, as Mr. Johnson said. Mr. Johnson says their child for maintenance. And the act goes a long way in dealing with the whole idea of maintenance.
So in other words then, the government has put into law a legislation rather that compels or obligates children to not just take care of their own parents, but even their parents' parents.
That's right, in certain circumstances.
In certain circumstances. All right, so what are the legal obligations based on what's in the act, what are the legal obligations for parents, for children taking care of their parents' financial needs? After you answer that one, there is a hand that is raised, Alfred Bryan. So after you respond to that, Mr. Ogilvy, we'll take Mr. Bryan.
Well, the act is there to protect the parents, right? What is noted is that it is not a situation where the court does arbitrarily makes an award to the parent. You know, they're going to take into consideration certain circumstances such as the child's needs, their means, sorry, not their needs, their means, as well as the parents' means. They're going to have to weigh that in order to determine what type of award will be made for the parent. As it relates to grandparents, the court will look at the financial situation of the parent first to see if that parent can in fact afford to take care of the grandparent or their parent. If it is a determination that they can't afford it, then the grandparent can actually go towards the grandchild and ask the grandchild for assistance. And just as before, the court will look at the needs of that person as well. You know, if they have their own kids, their expenses, all of that has to be taken in account to see whether or not that person can afford to take care of their parent or their grandparent.
All right. So in other words, then it's not a case where just because a grandparent or a parent decides that they want the child to take care of them, then the court is just going to automatically grant them that because it is their right, so to speak. Okay.
Correct.
All right. So Mr. Alfred Bryan has his hand up, followed by Willowdene Association, or a representative from the Willowdene Citizens Association. So Mr. Bryan, you can unmute your mic and go ahead. Following Mr. Bryan, we will have that representative from the Willowdene Citizens Association.
All right. Thank you, Corporal Fennell. So my question is going out. It is, what's the definition of a parent? Because to my understanding, the legal definition and what it actually is different. That is to say, a parent should be someone who took care of their child and takes care of their child, not just somebody who gave birth to a child, right? For example, I give birth, well, you know, I get a child now, right? And then I get old and I wasn't involved in that child's life none at all. But my child happens to be rich and I happen to want money from that child or maintenance from that child. It should be unfair that the court would award in such a situation. So is there a provision to protect or say that no, or it doesn't speak that well to it?
All right. So I think Mr. Ogilvy, you want to take on that question for us?
Sure, no problem. All right. There's a number of considerations that the court takes into account. That is one of them as well, whether or not the parent in fact assisted during the child's upbringing. If it is determined that you played no role in the child's life other than being the biological parent, then I'm sure the court will put heavy weight on whether or not you should in fact maintain that person. I'm not saying that the court will definitely not make an award, but I'm saying that it will be a major factor in determining whether or not they will make a maintenance order in that person's favor.
All right. Here's a little question to piggyback on that one that Mr. Bryan made, though. If it's a case where the child is well off, as Mr. Bryan indicated, and the parent played no role in that child's life, but yet that parent has been acknowledged as being the parent, and they are in dire need, would the court still go ahead and consider granting maintenance of that parent by the child?
Well, as I said, I can't say what the court will do. It is a consideration. It is one of the major considerations under the Act, whether or not you in fact played a role in the child's life, even though you're well off. The court can make an order. It also cannot make an order, but I guess it depends on the circumstances in order for the court to decide whether or not it will grant a maintenance order in favor of the parent.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Ogilvy. Mr. Bryan, I hope that answered your question for you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Wonderful. All right. And so that representative from the Willowdene Citizens Association, you can unmute your mic and go ahead.
Well, President, good evening to you, Corporal Fennell,
Good evening to
and
you,
to the
sir.
gentlemen on the panel. My name is Mr. Campbell. I am the president of Willowdene Citizens Association. Now, I hear the explanation about the rights of citizens, of elders to bring their situation to the court. Now, my question is it that if you can bring it to the court, and you know lawyers are not free. So if you bring that to the court, then you have to retain an attorney. And if you don't have money, how are you going to retain an attorney? Is this something that the seniors can go to legal aid and ask for them to represent them, their case? Because now you're saying they have rights to go to get an attorney and all that, and yet they need help. So where should they find that money? And is it that the government has provisions made that legal aid will take up a situation like what is being expressed right here?
All right. Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Campbell. I don't know if any one of my panelists want to take on or to respond to that one.
Well, I believe I would have to take on that one.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Campbell, what I will say is that these matters are generally dealt within the parish court or the family court. We don't usually deal with them in the Supreme Court, as in maintenance for parents or grandparents seeking maintenance from their children or grandchildren. Now, ideally, if you can get an attorney, you should do so. As you said, you can visit one of the legal aid clinics to see if they will assist in these type of matters. But what I do know is that the court office will assist you in doing the application yourself if it is a matter that you think you can manage. Generally, before the courts, the judges will do their best to assist you in with your matter. Before the in terms of I want to say mediating or ushering the matter along, but it is not a situation where it is hard to bring this type of matter before the court. My experience is that just like with any other maintenance matter where mothers go to the court office to get a maintenance order to serve on the father to seek maintenance, it very well may be a similar situation. You could go to the court office. They will assist you with preparing the documents, and then you will have to pay a process server to serve it on the child or grandchild, whatever being the situation. But as I said, it is always best if you can get an attorney or seek some assistance from the legal aid clinic. You know, that is their job. And you know, if there is a fee, I think it's a very, very nominal fee. I don't think it's a lot of money if you have to go to the legal aid clinic.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Gilby, for responding to that.
Can I have a follow-up, Mr.
Sure, Mr. Campbell. Sure.
I don't want to, No, I heard that was Mr. Gilby, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I've heard what you said. But remember now, the senior citizen is requiring some help, some assistance. Now, it takes funds to get to the parish court. It takes funds to file an injunction or whatever you file, your petition in court. And it also can reverberate on the individual that is bringing these allegations, these charges, these neglect. It can work against them in terms of the person who they're filing against can turn around and say, imagine you went to the court to file this against me for support. And if they do have have any consideration in terms that, by right, let me try to assist. That will only make matters worse where they're not going to be able to want to render any assistance. So I know you guys' program means good. And someone earlier, I think someone had wrote that what I said before I spoke, that there are quite a few seniors that was never making any provision for the children. And now that the child has made something good out of their lives, have a family, doing well, I know you come on now on the scene and want some assistance. I mean, come on now. I don't want to hold you guys up, but some years ago, while I was living in the United States, I was working at a hospital called Jacoby in the Bronx. And I was in charge at the time for the ambulance service. And they had a woman who was supposed to go to a nursing facility. I'll call it old age home, they call it. And she was crying, a white lady. And I asked her, why are you crying? And she said, over the years, I raised my children and put them in the university and everything. And now that I'm unable to provide for myself or handle, they've taken our things and put her in a home and try and sell it, put in our house up to sale. We don't have that luxury in Jamaica. But similarly, if you don't provide for yourself in your fresh years, you understand, and you are not your mobility is lacking, and it's how you treat your children, that's how your children come back and treat you. You understand? And then you don't have money, to provide for yourself, but you want to take your children to court. I mean, that's kind of strange to me. All right, I'm done talking. Let somebody else talk.
Thank you so very much for that contribution, Mr. Campbell. But you have made some good points that especially when you talk about the possibility of the child becoming angry at the parent for taking them before the court, and even if they would have considered contributing willfully, now that that has been done, they might actually refuse to contribute anything at all out of anger. And that is in fact true and something that can be taken into consideration, I believe, by the individual. So in my opinion, I believe that it is prudent for parents and grandparents, before they decide to take their children before the court, to at least have dialogue. But we're going to take it for granted that that dialogue was had and that there was no assistance forthcoming. And that is why they have decided to take this course of action. All right, so that is the premise that we're going to be basing the discussion on, that they have tried to have the conversation and the children or the grandchildren were just not willing to assist them in their time of need. And so they felt that it was necessary to go that route.
But if I may, Mr. Fenn,
go ahead, Sir Gil.
If it's a city we are, if you get a maintenance order, so if a parent get a maintenance order against your child, it is incumbent on the child to make sure that they are in compliance with the order, because failing to comply with the order can also mean imprisonment for up to 3 months, and you still owe the money regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So not saying that is a better situation. I'm just saying that it is something that that child would have to take into consideration if they're upset and decide that they don't want to pay any more money. And that is if the order is in place.
Oh, you said that is before the order or when?
No, that is when an order is in place.
Okay. All right. So that means it is treated just like any other maintenance order.
Right.
Where if the party who are the respondent refuses to comply with the order, they can actually serve prison times.
That's correct.
All right, so now we're getting somewhere. Now we're understanding the gravity of this law and how it is intended to protect the elderly. All right, so I'm in the chat and I'm seeing a few messages that I just want to quickly highlight. I'm seeing one from Aishiba Dawes, where she says, where a parent can afford it, set up 2 plans for their children and 1 for themselves. I say for the ones who can't, I think the child should take up that responsibility. And I believe that there are many persons on this platform who would agree with you on that statement, Ms. Dawes. There's another one that is saying if a parent didn't, it's a question also coming from Ms. Dawes, which I believe was answered. If a parent didn't assist with the child's upbringing, can they claim? And the answer to that is yes, they can claim. However, the court will determine whether or not their claim is honored or not. J.A. White says, what if a child is overseas but their whereabouts are unknown? And I think to respond to that, in order for the maintenance to go before the court, a summons must be served on the respondent. And so therefore they would have to be located first before the matter can even be placed before the court. All right, so I think that answers that question right there. And then we're going down where this is C. Henry Wilson. If you invest in your child, then most likely the children will take care of you when the need arises. And we want to believe that that is how things ought to be. But is there anyone who can identify a situation where the parent took care of the children, but when they have gotten to a certain stage in life, the children just abandoned their parents? If you know of such a situation, you can raise your hand or type it in the chat. Tammy T says there are circumstances where parents take care of their children and the children in return abandon them. I just realized that she is saying the very same thing that I was saying earlier. But yes, the truth is that in many instances, parents are abandoned by children, even though they did in fact take care of them in their younger years, as they ought to, because they are, one, they are compelled by law, and two, as parents, it is their responsibility. There are 2 hands that I want to take, Shireen Ogilvie and C. Henry Wilson. So Shireen Ogilvie, you will go first. Good evening. Unmute your mic and go ahead.
Hi, good evening. My question is this: in a case where there are more than 1 children, probably say 5, in the days gone by, you would have persons having 10, 12 children. In a case like that, is it that all the children are served?
You're asking if all the children would be served with the summons?
Yes, if all the children are served, or it's just a particular 1 or 2 that would be served for maintenance.
All right, Mr. Johnson or Mr. Ogilvie, any one of you want to answer that question?
Well, I suspect you could do either. You could either serve one, which usually persons would serve the one that is more well off than the other. Or if all of them is a situation where everybody have money, or all of them need to, the parent thinks all of them need to come together to take care of them, that can be done that way as well.
Okay, so the parent can choose to take 1 child to court or all the children to court, depending on the circumstance. All right, so I think that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you for that question as well. C. Henry Wilson, you can unmute your microphone and go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So my question is, I think it's a question, but more so a comment. How do we draw the line between greed and the real need to be taken care of? And I'm asking that on the premise that there may just be some parents whose children are really trying, but then the parents don't really see it as them getting enough. How do we draw that line? Or is there a line of demarcation where that is concerned?
All right. So you're asking if there is any way to determine whether a parent is just being greedy versus they are actually truly in need of assistance. That's what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
Well, I think I want to assist Mr. Ogilvy with this one, and then he can chip in afterwards. I believe that one of the considerations that the court will have to look at is the parents' actual ability to take care of themselves. So yes, the parent can take the child to court, but if the parent is in a position where they really don't need to burden the child, then that is something that the child will take, the court will take into consideration. So if it is that the parent is just being greedy and feel that, you know, they should get something back from the child for all of their effort, their time and their money that they have invested over the years, even though they don't need it, that is something that I'm sure that the court will take into consideration. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Mr. Ogilvy.
That is correct, Mr. Fennell. And at the end of the day, the court is not going to just take what you say at face value. They're going to, of course, ask for the assistance from usually the probation office to do a means test. They'll investigate your background, your finances to see whether or not you are in fact in need. If it is determined that you are quite well off and don't need any assistance, then an order will not be made in your favor.
All right, thank you so much for that. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right, thank you as well. All right, so in the chat again, I'm seeing where Barbara is giving some advice, and she's saying, my sound advice to all, do not spend out all of your cash on your children. Save some for latter years. These are different generation of children. And I think that, you know, that is sound advice indeed. You know, put down a little something for yourself to help to take care of you, because the reality is that none of us knows what position our children are going to be in or what circumstances may befall them. You know, we have seen in many instances where persons were well off, and then you have one economic downturn and people lose their jobs, lose their homes. And so, you know, we really and truly don't know what the future holds, what lies in the horizon. And so it is important for us to put something aside to help ourselves in the future. Milton says that there are lessons to be learned from this. Parents are to make provision for old age. Do not spend everything on your children. They are not your old age pension. So the advice there again. And Claudette Bowie is saying that sometimes when children get married, parents tend to get left behind. So plan for yourself, as not all of them will support parents in the older age. And once again, sound advice coming from the persons on our platform. And we thank you very much for getting involved in the discussion.
You know, just to make a point, those last two comments segue something that we always try to enforce, and not enforce, sorry, to encourage persons to do, and is to make provisions for retirement. At the council, we also do retirement planning session. And it's important that right now we have many institutions that are doing retirement planning. They have the retirement planning packages. You know, as the Ministry of Social Security, we have, you know, the NIS, the government pension and part, but those are not adequate enough to take care of persons when they do become in the retirement years. So we do encourage persons to make provisions for retirement.
All right, thank you so very much, Mr. Johnson, for that. Here's a question though. as it relates to the Maintenance Act, are there any limitations on the financial support that children should provide to their parents?
Limitations. Well, the court generally looks at the finances, and it's not like they're going to make an unreasonable award. They're going to look at everything that you have going on in your life, whether your kids, if you have mortgage, if you have any sort of debts, and based on that, they look and determine how much they think would be reasonable. Of course, parents can ask for a certain amount, and but they would have to justify why they think they should get that amount and why they think that the child can afford to pay that. But as I said, it is a situation where the court would have to investigate investigate the child's finances to see what they can afford at the end of the day. So I don't want to say that you can ask, you can expect to get $1 million a month. I don't think the court would ever make such an order. It will be a situation of what is reasonable and what do you need in order to survive on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Gilby. So in other words then, what you're saying is that the court will grant only what you need. So if, for example, say a parent felt it necessary to ask the child to purchase them a motor vehicle so that they can drive around themselves on a day-to-day, that is not necessarily something that the court would consider, would it?
Not necessarily. But the court can make an order to vest property in to a parent, or to hold property or some funds in trust for the parent if they so desire.
Okay, so in other words, then you're saying that the court could actually compel the child to give over or put property aside for the benefit of the parent.
Right. So if a child is fortunate enough to have a number of properties and the parent needs a place to stay, the court can in fact make an order to say, allow the parent to stay here, and the court can make that order for the life of the parent, if it so chooses.
Okay, but such a parent though, the property would not be turned over to them in terms of ownership, would it?
No.
So they would just be a holder of the property, and so therefore, if they have other children, those children would not be able to claim those properties upon the death of the parent.
Not in that circumstance.
Not in that circumstance. All right, thank you so very much for clarifying that. So, all right, we know that we talk about finances and we're talking about maintenance as it relates to, taking care of the day-to-day living of the parents. What about health care? When we know that as persons get older, the health tends to deteriorate, and there are different lifestyle chronic diseases that tend to come upon them. Is it a case where the court could order a child to foot all of those medical expenses, or to take care of the healthcare costs, and even if it means paying for a nurse monthly or putting that parent into a nursing home?
Well, I don't know if the court will make an order for you to pay the entire cost. As I say, it really comes down to the needs of the child, if they, whether or not they can afford it. But that is a consideration for the court as well. Medical expenses, day-to-day living, a number of factors fall under the consideration that the court will look at. And it is for the parent to say, I need assistance with my healthcare, or I need assistance with my day-to-day living. These are things that will be pointed out in the application. So it definitely will cover healthcare will fall under it. As I said, determine whether and how much you will get. It depends on your means, really and truly.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so going back to the chat, I am seeing where, let me see who this is. Jacqueline Miller Daly. She's saying not viewing children as our old age pension might be applicable to persons earning a reasonable salary. But for those earning minimum wage or not able to earn consistently, this may be a reality. You know, and I think I want to ask Mr. Johnson here, based on this statement here, in your capacity in the National Council for Senior Citizens, how often do you see this popping up where, you know, parents in their old age are really looking to their children, supporting them in that time?
Okay, well, the earliest case is yesterday. A gentleman came yesterday about the same very thing. And he was saying that he has so many children, that are able to do so. So in terms of the prevalence, we may have a case like this maybe like 2 or 3 times for the week. And what we have to do sometimes when we do an intake form, we take into account all the information and we call the children and children at times, and they may say that, boy, you know, John is the one who's supposed to deal with the health related stuff, or this one is doing that and that one is doing, and so forth. But I find though that most of the times though, when you will find more sympathy, leniency, and they get further with the case when it's a female as opposed to a male. So I know because of our terms of our something to do with our African tradition in terms of the family formation and men leaving the family, but most time we don't find that many support comes for the male, but more for the females.
Oh, so you're saying that you see where more support is given to mothers,
yes,
grandmothers,
yes,
rather than fathers or grandfathers.
Right. Because most times the men that come with the most difficult cases as relates to support and the need for their children, and they ask them where the whereabouts, they'll have a name, they don't know where to find them, that kind of thing. But most of the females, if they do even come, you may find that maybe the child who was supporting is sort of in some difficult time, or they may have some sort of falling out and things like that. But most times it's the males that we have a lot of severe cases, chronic cases with.
And here's a question though.
Yeah.
Is that indicative of what life for that child would have been like, or what role or contribution the man would have played in the life of the children?
Yeah, that is true. Some of the men, they come here open, you know, they basically wept in tears that during that time, they really confess that they maybe were philanders, or at times they were never there for the children, you know, and some of them too, out of maybe just own up shame, they will tell you their information, but they say not to reach out to them. So you get that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, one of the things that we tend to see on when it comes down to Mother's Day and Father's Day, you know, we tend to see the marked difference in how the mothers are celebrated versus how the fathers are celebrated. And, you know, when it comes down to Mother's Day, you will see the stores and the stalls lined with baskets and all forms of gifts for mothers. But when it comes down to the fathers, we see very little, if any. And, you know, I think it speaks volume to how little or lacking the role of fathers are in the lives of children, you know. And I think that is something that we also have to look at from now. You know, when we get older, do we believe that we've contributed to our children's life enough to believe that they're obligated to take care of us? You know, this is something that I believe we have to look at now, so that even when we get older, you know, we don't find ourselves in the position that some of these persons are finding themselves in.
That is so true.
Right. So here's a question from Regina Johnson. How do you receive financial help from a child or children living abroad.
Yes, well, if the I'm assuming that they have a maintenance order against that child that is overseas. If that is the case, I know there are at least 3 states in America that enforce maintenance orders from Jamaica. I think Florida is one. I can't remember the other 2 right now. But what happens in those situations is that you would first have to get a support order from the court. Usually they would need an attorney to assist you in that matter. Thereafter, you would get the documents. You'd have to get the assistance of somebody in America to get the documents over to be enforced over there through their court system. But if there is a situation where they are not in a what we call a reciprocating state that automatically enforce the order, you would have to basically start proceedings in that country and bring a copy of the certified maintenance order that's received in Jamaica over there.
Okay, so you're saying that, you know, a parent can stay right here in Jamaica and get a maintenance order for their child living in another country, such as America, that they can stay right here and still have that order enforced?
Right. But as I said, in those circumstances, you definitely need the assistance of an attorney for that process, because you'd have to get permission to file, to serve your documents overseas. The court, you can't just serve it overseas. You have to get permission from the court in order to do that.
All right, so here's the question then. In a situation like that, when it comes onto financing that legal support, that lawyer, would that cost then be transferred to the child when the order is enforced, if the order is enforced, that is?
Well, you can always ask the court to make an order for costs. The sad truth is that these cost orders don't necessarily equate to what the lawyer actually is charging. You know, the court has a set fee of what they award to attorneys for costs in the parish court, and I'm speaking of specifically in family court. But it will assist towards those fees. What I would say is I'm not sure if other than that the court will make any award of saying that the sum that is you're claiming from the child will be included, the legal fees will be included in that. I don't believe the court will do that. But a cost order can be asked for during the application or at the end of the application.
Okay, all right. So there is the possibility where even though the parent is suing the child and they in fact went to seek the lawyer, the child could still end up paying even a portion of that legal cost. That's what you're saying?
Right.
All right. Mr. Campbell, I believe you have your hand raised again. You can unmute your mic and go ahead.
Yes, I have seen a similar situation, but it's parent, how would I say it now? I've seen a similar situation overseas that they went through they get the legal documents here. It goes to the foreign affairs send it to the Jamaican consulate. The Jamaican consulate initiate a contact with the State Department. You see the long drawn process. They have the 0 till say lives in the person individual live in New York, and then they have the name, the age, and they run it through Social Security. Okay, when they run it through Social Security, everybody that lives there and is legal, you have to make contribution to Social Security. They in turn now say, oh, this is the person we are looking for. Then what they do is they will garnish your wages, because I've seen it happen with the company I work for our same Jamaican counterpart them here, and they have left behind a lot of children, and up there having a good time. And a court order is issued to the company, you understand, their accounts department, and by law, money start to come down through the Council General to the children here in Jamaica. So because Jamaica is they recognize the United States law is just like extradition or something. They recognize each other on each side of the pond. So in fact, whoever that mentioned that, in fact, yes, it can happen. But then there you go again. It takes money to do that. You understand? But if you are determined enough to have this rectified so your children can, or your parent can get some help, then you have to go the extra mile to get this done. Okay?
True. That is true. Thank you so very much for that bit of information there, Mr. Campbell. Right. So here's a question though. We know that in many situations there are biological children, adopted children, and stepchildren. Can parents take any of them to court, as in the same way that they could take their biological children? Are they also allowed to take their adopted children or even their stepchildren to court?
They can. Just as we're, as I said, the stepchild can carry the step parent to court. Vice versa. Once it is established that there is that type of relationship, just like where what the court says is likes to say is that you have accepted the child as a child of the family, right? Yeah. You automatically become that person's parent, and you are legally responsible for that child. Therefore, in the reverse, that child has accepted you as their parent, and therefore you would also be responsible for them. Whether it's by marriage or by cohabitation, or what we like to call common law unions, where you're together for at least 5 years, living together for 5 years as husband and wife. Well, living together for 5 years as if you were husband and wife, I should say.
Mm. So you're saying then that even in the common law setting, where there are children involved, where the children belong to one person, but they're not the biological children of the other, you are saying that even in the common law situation, a parent or a step parent could take a stepchild to court for maintenance?
Right. Once, and as I said before, the court will have to look into whether or not that parent meets the requirement to be deemed, that person meets the requirement to be deemed a parent. They have to show that, boy, they have to show that they took the child in, they took care of the child and everything. And I'm assuming they'd also need some sort of external evidence to back up that claim.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, this is very interesting because, we in Jamaica, we have a saying that if you take the cow, you have to take the calf. And now we are recognizing, and I believe some persons are recognizing it for the first time, that, the law actually protects the stepchildren, or it provides for the fact that when a step parent comes into the picture, that child becomes legally their own in some respect. Maybe they haven't legally adopted them, but they have taken on the responsibility for that child. And so you are indicating that just as how the parent, say a mother, could take a stepfather, are you saying that a mother could take a stepfather to court to support the stepchild? Are you saying that?
A mother could take the stepfather, for the child? Yes, definitely.
Okay, that is interesting. That is actually new information for me, because for many years I was of the opinion that only biological parents or adopted parents could be taken to court. But now we're learning, ladies and gentlemen, that even in a step-parent, step-child situation, that person can be taken to court for maintenance of that stepchild. So thank you very much for that piece of information, Mr. Ogilvy. And can children, after a parent takes a child to court, and let us say that a maintenance order is in place, can that child get out of that order, or can they be released from that, financial responsibility towards their parents?
Yeah, they can bring the matter back before the court to have the court vary the order or suspend the order. But of course, they have to show the circumstances of why that needs to be done. Whether the parent has now become financially stable and does not need their support anymore, or of course, if the whatever other reason they believe that they don't need to support the parent anymore, they can go back before the court and ask for a variation of that order or suspension of the order.
Okay, but how would that process take place? Could you possibly, walk us through the steps for doing that?
Well, if you get an attorney, the attorney would file an application before the court, the family court or parish court, which you would call the variation order. You'd of course you'd put in the name of the parties. You would attach the previous order that was granted, and then you would detail the reason why you want the order to be varied and what it should be varied to, or if you want it to be suspended, file it before the court. You can either serve it on the parent or the other party, or you can also make what we call an ex parte application, meaning that you don't give the other person any notice of your intention to do this. And thereafter, the court, whichever situation it is, the court will consider the application and determine whether or not they will grant it in your favor.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. So there is in fact, a means of or a provision made for children to not be held responsible when parents get to a place where they're able to sustain themselves. So they might have been in a situation where they were unable to provide for themselves initially when that order was granted. But once they have gotten to that stage where they're actually capable of now taking care of themselves without this aid of the child, then the child or children can have that matter brought back to court so that the order can be rescinded, or that the order can be changed based on their circumstance.
Sorry.
All right. Are there legal mechanisms available for elderly parents to enforce their rights to financial support, aside from parents and grandparents, going before the court? Is there anything else that parents can do to enforce their right? I don't know, Mr. Johnson, from your perspective, would you like to take this one on?
Go again with the question.
Aside from taking children to court, is there any other way that the parent or grandparent could exercise their right to financial support from their child or children?
Well, I know in our cases, if they do come to us, we act as an intermediate or mediation in that regard, and we also do our own assessments and our home visits to assist seniors as it relates to those issues, and which we do try to find duress for them.
Okay,
Yeah,
so even if they're unable to bring the matter before the court, you are saying that there is still some help that can be provided for them to help them to exercise their right to being supported by their children.
Yeah, man. Yes. We do have that intervene, and so and at times when we do intervene, many times the children, we get a different response. I don't know because it is the state or government. When we do interview, you do get a different response from the children most times.
All right. So, in other words, then, sometimes it could be a communication issue between the parents and the children, why they don't get a favorable response.
Yes, and sometimes too, you have to also sort of re-socialize the children, or in this case, which are relative that is there, that's in the that has custody of the parent. You know, most of persons out of frustration, not knowing, not realizing what they are doing many times.
So ignorance plays a role in that.
Right.
Process.
Right.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. So there is another question in the chat from J.A. White. It says, what if after the parent begins getting the money, the parent begins to squander or waste the money, such as gambling or addiction, or if generally the parent has costly habits? Whenever that starts to happen, or if that starts to happen,
yes,
what can the child do with the situation?
Well, I don't know what to say. I don't know if there's a case whereby, in terms of the money, is it that they would appoint an agent? Because if the person has gambling addiction, you know, that basically is a case now for an institution called Rise Life Management to intervene. That's the case. But is there the case where there is somebody who could be appointed as an agent? Because, you know, in terms of our social assistance program, we do encourage that at person, you know, senior, due to maybe their inability to go and collect their social welfare, that they appoint an agent. The same thing for their NIS, hoping that these persons who are honest, you know, and have good integrity, that they will give them. Because in this case, if it's answered correctly, if there could be somebody who is an agent who can maybe better balance the finances, or the case the person is really have an addiction when it comes to gambling or spending, they could intervene with like Rise Life Management.
Okay, so and would this agent be appointed by the court?
I don't know if Mr. Tinder could assist me with that. Because I know for us here, we have, when we're appointing an agent for any of our services, usually it's a JP is suffice enough to the family or the senior would recommend the agent, and then JP would sign to say that they have authorized, and then it's approved, and then we continue any sort of monetary assistance that they get through the social assistance programs.
You want to pitch in here, Mr. Ogilvy?
All right. What I will say is that yes, the court can under the Maintenance Act, the court can also ensure that the payments are made to an agent on behalf of the parent, as it relates to the appointment of the agent in circumstances of squandering or gambling if there's some sort of addiction. I'm not very au fait with the process of what process you would go through to prove that the person is not mentally in a position to take care of themselves. I don't know if it would be the mental health. I don't necessarily suspect it is a mental health situation, but more of a I don't want to say more of well, it is, as I say, gambling sort of situation. I don't know what they would classify it as, but I know there is a process of dealing with that aspect of it. The appointment of an agent, I'm not sure if the court will necessarily make that appointment, or as Mr. Johnson says, somebody else can come in who they believe is trustworthy enough to manage the finances of that person,
right,
and appoint that person. But definitely the court, under the Maintenance Act, will make payments to an agent for the parent if they are not in a position to take care of themselves.
Okay, thank you so very much, gentlemen, for responding to that question. But earlier I heard Mr. Johnson make mention of some social programs.
Right.
For elderly. You want to go ahead and tell us about some of those programs and some of the benefits that the elderly can get through your organization?
Sure, sure. So, with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, the Social Security portfolio, the government social flagship social welfare program is part with the program through health and education. So the elderly, 60 years and older, we define as persons as seniors and as the elderly, they will get what you would call a elderly payment because they're under the category of elderly, and that is 6,200 every 2 months that they apply for part. So it apply using their ID, birth cert, and TRN. They can collect it on their own, or they could, as I said, appoint an agent. For persons now who have not receiving part, was never ever a recipient of a pension, whether it be NIS, government, or private pension, they can apply for the social pension, provided that they are 75 years and older. And the same thing would apply their ID, birth certificate, TRN. Those are their, the requisite documentation to make an application. For persons as well of 65, you can do your NIS claim for your pension. So that's what it relates to monetary wise. Also too, if the senior may in a position where they can do something income generating, there are also grants that we call rehabilitation grants. They can sustain themselves, provided that they can find the requisite permits, whether the food anglers permits or they operate in a bar, the spirits license, that they can do something feasible and viable. There are also those sort of grants. Here at the council, we don't have per se a social assistance program monetary, but we do have what we call a feeding program to assist persons, and we also have a nurse aide that will go to the homes and routinely check on them, do their vital signs and things like that, of that nature.
All right. Thank you so much for that. But all right, we have seen a number of senior citizens out on the streets walking and begging. Is there anything that your agency has in place to find and assist those persons?
Well, those persons should really be assisted either through the poor relief department. At times we do get those cases too, and especially during COVID, we found a lot of persons that were homeless. As it relates to even to some of the males that do come to the council for issues, is also a borderline being homeless, not having a stable place of abode. But most time we reach out to the poor relief the poor relief officer, the inspector, and the person who is responsible for whatever particular jurisdiction in terms of having somewhere for them to stay. I know in Kingston you have the open arms, you also have the Mayor acting to shelter for persons that where they can do a drop-in center to get assistance. But there are so many persons, there are so many in terms of the numbers as opposed to the supply are having places for them. But as it relates to that, it's really poor relief that really in there in terms of having a place for them. We usually in the ministry have a social assistance housing program is no longer in existence. But just to answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
so if it is then that I see an elderly person out there on the road, and I believe that I would want that person to get some help, who would I call?
Yeah, you can first refer them to us, and then we will have to do that in terms of our partners. So to answer your question, you could always send it. If it's in St. Catherine, you will go to what they call the NIS office. So within every parish capital, there is a NIS. That's a term used by the persons in rural areas. NIS office, where there is a parish organizer for the National Council for Senior Citizens in all the parish capitals.
All right. Thank you so much. So that is vital information there, ladies and gentlemen, that, for many of those elderly persons that we see out there on the street, if we really want to help, we can reach out through our respective NIS offices.
Right. In the
parishes.
Right.
Right.
One thing for KMA, you will come directly to 11 West Kings House Road for the National Council, because it's only different. With every other partners, you have a National Council parish organizer within the NIS office.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. A lot of information being shared here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Mr. Campbell, you have your hand raised again. You can
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I have two follow-up. One, I need some more information at the West Kings House location. Two, a question. I have heard on the news quite some time now, it's been repetitive that people bring their family to the hospital. They have gotten treated, but nobody is there to retrieve them and take them out so they can have room for other persons to go in. Now, is it that those persons that bring them there just leave them like that? Is there no information gathered from the individual family member, name, phone number, and so forth? Why doesn't the government go after them and hold them responsible for not getting their family member out? And you hear about it so often on the television. You hear Mayor Mackenzie, Minister Mackenzie, had said it. I've been talking about it. You hear it in Spanish Town Hospital complaining, Savlamar, all over the place.
Yes.
People bring their family member and leave them there. So, what is the recourse to that when there are family members who physically brought them there for treatment and leave them?
All right. So the question there, Mr. Campbell, is you're asking what recourse is there for the parents who are left at the hospital for when children bring them there or relatives bring them there for treatment and just don't turn up to collect them. So, you're asking what's the recourse for them, but I would also like to ask, what would they, if a matter like this is brought before the council, how would they respond in this situation, Mr. Johnson?
Firstly, at the hospital, this is a case of elderly being neglected as well, obviously, because when they do take in them as an inpatient, they should have something on record. Mr. Campbell saying that, a next of kin who would have carried them there. But I've never received actually a call or persons from the hospital for our intervention, but we can say it never happens. I know that at times persons there is a medical social worker who has that responsibility now. Whenever they've exhausted all that reserve in the family, is to finding that somewhere a place to live. And most times some persons are sent to homes like the old age home. In that case, and that sometimes is overburdened and overstressed, in terms of having capacity. And there's also situation where persons also needing the space also at the hospital in terms of bed, as Mr. Campbell mentioned. Never received a case like that before, but I know that usually at the hands now of the social worker that is in-house at the hospital, where to channel that person, where do they go from there?
Okay, so
the persons are there for more than enough time at the hospital.
So in other words, then, in response to such a situation, it would take a multi-agency approach. So the hospital would have to play a role in getting the information for the patient.
Social worker there at the hospital as well, right?
Right. And then, your agency or the Ministry of Labor and Social Security.
Right.
They would have to get involved as well.
Right, because they're placed elsewhere, and they may also need our intervention in some other respect.
Okay, what about if they need counseling? Because sometimes situations like these can be traumatic. What about counseling and support? Is that provided for the elderly?
Yes, ma'am. We do one-on-one counseling for the elderly. It's open, and that's something that is crucial. They do several sessions, and those counseling may also have to sometimes bring in other relatives in terms of separate counseling or together, just so somewhat finding out how to best treat the presenting problem, because sometimes it's a multiplicity of problems that lies or are underlying that is there for them to reach to that state.
Understood. And I think one of the things that we have to remember is that everything that we do today is going to affect us tomorrow. And you know, as you indicated, there's a multiplicity of problems, and some of them I am sure are coming from the past.
Right.
Being brought along like baggages, so to speak.
Right. Because frankly, too, Mr. Fenner, many of these persons, they have somewhere to call home to return to. Sometimes the very same caregivers will leave them there. It's really a gateway to try to get rid of them because they see them as a burden.
That is true. So therefore, they use the hospital
right.
as a means of, offloading.
Right, because that quite frankly, they would have been somewhere before they take them there to get medical attention.
That's right.
So those persons will have to hold them in there, responsible.
In a case like that, Mr. Ogilvy, if a child takes their parent or grandparent to the hospital and leaves them there, and once there's information available for that child, is there any legal action that can be taken against such a child?
I'm not sure, or I'm not aware if they can take any legal action for leaving them there. What I suspect is that, of course, there will be some bill that the person have to pay for that time that they left them there, because it's a hospital at the end of the day and they're taking care of them and they're not doing that for free.
All right.
Somebody has to pay for that eventually.
Okay.
So it is just a sad situation, as Mr. Johnson would point out, persons that, as him said, just leave them there. And it's a similar situation happens at the court as well, especially where the person has a mental challenge and the court decides to make an order for a psych evaluation. Sometimes you never see the person come back to court again to look for them. They just leave them there and they're in the court, and the court can't just release somebody like that back on the road without some sort of support.
So we're seeing now where persons are using various agencies like the court system and the hospitals as a means of offloading their responsibility to their parents, or trying to escape their responsibility for their parents. And you're also saying that whilst there may not be legal action that can be taken against them for leaving them there, any bills that are accrued by virtue of the person being at the hospital, that the next of kin will be held liable to pay those bills?
Yeah, the hospital, in the circumstances, would be able to bring action against them if they so choose.
So the hospital can take that person to court to have them pay the bills.
Right.
Okay, that is good for us to know. Being held accountable in some way, shape, or form. So it means that there's no scotch-free getaway. Whenever something like that happens, there is some form of redress that should come even to the organization or the entity that where these parents or persons are left. Now we are coming down to the close of our program, as we are fast approaching 8 o'clock. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that we have been having a very meaningful and educational discussion here this evening. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, you can go ahead and raise your hand, or you can type it in the chat and we'll try to have that question answered for you. Now, seeing that there is none in the chat right now, I am going to ask Mr. Ogilvy, what would be your recommendation to both parents or grandparents as well as children as it relates to providing support from both a legal standpoint as well as a humanitarian standpoint?
Well, from a legal standpoint, a lot of persons aren't aware that your parents can carry to court. Personally, I've only ever seen it once, where a parent brought a child before the court I don't know if a lot of lawyers have ever really encountered it, but I personally have only ever seen it once, and I've been practicing for 8 years. As I said, legally, can carry your child to court or your grandchild to court. They can get an order from the court to take care of them, and that is their protection. On a humanitarian ground, parents, if you can take care of your child, you show them love, care, and support, be a part of their lives. I know it is not easy for everyone. Everybody is not necessarily financially off in a good situation, but if you're there for your child and showing them support, more often than not, if the child makes it in life, they're not going to forget what you've done for them. We've seen it from time and time. Parents who have sell vendors on the roadside and then send them kids to university, and the child has made it, and the child come back and take care of them parents. We see it from time to time. Unfortunately, you do have situations where some persons think them bigger than that and forget them parents, but I believe it is how you bring up a child. If you bring them up in the right way, definitely they will come back around and they'll make sure they take care of it. So that is my my humanitarian opinion on that situation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ogilvie. So now, Mr. Johnson, it's over to you. What would be your recommendation to both parents and children? If you can touch on it from the legal aspect as well as from the humanitarian aspect of it.
Okay, well, ensure that in terms of as we our theme speak about children being old age pension, that is something that both parties need to have a discussion by the time the child is able to fully understand that we both have a responsibility, the parent a responsibility in terms of educating the child, providing the basic of food, clothing, and shelter, and also that parents will have to make provisions for their old age as well, because it's important that you don't want on either side of the pendulum for there to be any sort of a burden, because it can be burden, most time persons, the child becoming the adult as a burden, years going up, and vice versa.
Okay, thank you so very much. And I just want to add my 2 cents to this. Children are really not your pension. But, it is expected that when you have contributed to their lives, it will be good for them to in turn turn around and help to provide support for you in your old age. It is also prudent for us as parents to make some provisions for ourselves for the future. That is why having a retirement plan is important. That is why having a pension plan is important. Having savings is important so that you don't become a burden to your children in the future. It's also important for children to understand that the law has made provisions for their parents to take them to court if they refuse to offer help when they need it. And that is important for us to understand. And also, as Mr. Ogilvie pointed out, you could serve a term of up to 3 months in prison if you refuse to honor an order that the court has made. And I'm sure I saw a hand raised. That is Bishop Rowan Edwards. And he is. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to our discussion. And you can unmute your microphone and go ahead.
My dear Mr. Fennell, how are you, sir?
I almost say thank you for joining us.
I almost say SSB Fennell, all right? Prophesy on that, okay?
You can speak to me.
No, sir. I listened to the conversations. And I am a father of 3 children, eh? And most of you might know Jermaine Edwards, my son Rohan Edwards, and Peter Gay Edwards. They're 3 people who are very, very professional in their life. And they have passed the worst and are doing extremely well for themselves and for their families. Now, in scripture, it is the father, and though I know we have our chairman on the platform, Reverend Yvette Harriet, who I respect dearly. I'm not trying to be a male chauvinist here, but it is the father whose responsibility to make sure that the children are positioned well. Now, I tell my 3 children, I tell them, and also my grandchildren, that after I have done my best to have you gone through school, matter of fact, to have taken care of you along with your mother for all of these years, and I've done my best. If you ever come to my funeral service and didn't show me any love when I'm old and can't handle myself, I'll get up out of my casket and hug you and tell you thanks for coming to my funeral. No, I'm serious. It is incumbent on the children to make sure that, I wouldn't say that they're your old age pension, because you must make provision for your kids, right? And but Joseph, when he was in Egypt, he made it loud and clear. He said, hey, when I'm dead, you take my bones with you. It was not just because God wanted to open the Red Sea for the children of Israel, but because the children of Israel had Joseph's bones carrying with him. I said you have to make sure that you show your parents that level of respect. So I know that should anything happen, I would never beg bread on the street. I would never go to somebody's house and beg them food. Many times I see people on the street doing that kind of thing. I say, where are the kids? But it's not that I'm looking for anything. And I made it clear that I've made my own.
Bishop Edwards, you're muted. You're muted, sir.
I will not allow my kids to be dependent on my kids, right? So I would say that to any parents, and I shared with the church I pastor. I said, make sure you don't have a dependency level on your children. It's good to have them making their contribution, but you must put yourself in a position that you don't depend on them. That's my take on the matter, sir.
Thank you so very much for that contribution, Sir Edward. You know, and you are quite right. As I was indicating earlier, that the responsibility is there for us to provide for ourselves for the future, put some plan in place for the future so that we don't become burdens to our children. You know, children should be happy to contribute to their parents' well-being when they are older. You know, but should, in case you find yourself in a position where your child or children are not so inclined, you should still be in a position where you are able to support yourself, because you would really and truly have less responsibilities at that time. You know, you're not raising children at that age, so therefore, you know, you're not looking to be spending excessively on your children. So you'll be able to focus more of your resources on your own self and your own well-being. You know, and so I believe it is important for persons to understand that children are not your pension, but the law has provided judicial legislation for parents to be supported in times of need by their children. And so that is the takeaway that I want persons to have this evening. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I do want to say a big thank you To my panelists, Mr. Richard Ogilvie and Mr. Marlon Johnson, I want to say a big thank you. And, I want to point out in the chat that, someone indicated earlier, I think it's Jay White, it says, very knowledgeable panel and looking forward to seeing them again. So that means that they're asking us to put on another show for them.
No problem.
All right, so we will come up with another topic surrounding our elderly that I'm sure that we'll be able to invite both gentlemen back, and I'm sure that you'll be seeing them back some point in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to say a big thank you for joining us here for another segment of the Family Empowerment Discussion, where we educate the family. Have yourselves a wonderful night and do enjoy the rest of your evening with your family. Go and hug your parents, tell them you love them. Thanks for all the contribution that they have made to your life.
Yeah, amen. I just shared my contact in the chat. I know Mr. Cam said he wanted to know more about the council, so I shared for him, and you can pass it on to him so we can talk further off the air.
Yes, yes. I'm going to ask you also, Mr. Ogilvie, if you are so inclined, just in case persons may want to get legal advice or to follow up, you can share your contact information there so that persons can benefit, and share it with even elderly persons so that they too might be able to benefit from the information. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your positive feedback. And I want to remind you that this video is being streamed live on YouTube, and afterwards it will be available for anyone to be able to view it on YouTube. You can search for CSSB North 83, that's CSSB North 83, and you'll be able to find this and previous videos that have been uploaded there to our channel. So we ask that you like, you share, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be notified whenever we are going live or whenever videos are uploaded to the channel. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again.
Thank you too. My pleasure being here.
Thanks again, Mr. Fennell, for the invite, and good night, everyone.
Yes, sir, Ogilvie.
All right, Sir Johnson.
Yeah, man.